Our exclusive interview with Jay Johnson as we preview the Baseball Tigers weekend in Jacksonville. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Jay Johnson and the Baseball Tigers are in Jacksonville. They'll play a 3-game round-robin weekend there at the home of the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. It'll be Indiana on Friday, Notre Dame on Saturday, and then Central Florida on Sunday. Had a chance on Thursday to visit with the head Tiger, Jay Johnson. For what it's worth, Tigers played on Wednesday, as you know, against Nicholls, traveled to Jacksonville, practiced in Jacksonville on Thursday morning, had the rest of the day off, and then they'll play Friday at 1 o'clock Central Time in the Live Like Lou Classic there in Jacksonville, and they'll open up against Indiana. And Jay Johnson gave we'll get to the pitching rotation here in just a quick second, but here was Jay Johnson's thoughts on the Hoosiers.
Tony Newbeck, left-handed starter. He threw 4 scoreless against North Carolina last week. We actually faced him in 2022, so he's been in college forever. One of those guys. I was actually watching some at-bats of like Dylan Cruz, Cade Doty, and Jacob Berry. That's how long ago that was. From a game in 2022, Tyler McManus homered off him. So he looks good. He threw the ball clean last week. You got to keep the leadoff guy off base. They play more of a West Coast style of baseball. So if you can get the leadoff guy out, it may make it hard to score, and hopefully that's what we can do tomorrow.
So Newbeck, who Jay mentioned there, again, Indiana had a season-opening series against North Carolina. They were swept by the Tar Heels. By the way, Kendall Rogers from D1 Baseball in just a quick second is going to give his take on Indiana, and he mentioned something very interesting about North Carolina, which you'll hear in a smidge. But Newbeck started that opener against North Carolina. Again, he's the grad transfer. Did not allow a run, 4 innings pitched, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. But a lefty, and of course, we're going to see how LSU handles the lefty, and maybe if Jay loads up the lineup with more right-handed bats, considering they will be facing the lefty in Newbeck. As far as Indiana offensively, they didn't have a great weekend against North Carolina. They played this in Chapel Hill, and they were swept through 4 games. So they played 3 games in Chapel Hill. They were swept in those 3 games. Then they played a midweek game against Bradley and won 15-3. So it hasn't been a great start. When you look offensively in those 3 games against North Carolina, they lost 12-2, so they were run ruled in the opener. They lost an extra inning game 4-3, and then they were run ruled. In game 1, they lost 9-4 in game 1, then were run ruled 12-2 in game 2, and then lost an extra innings 4-3 in game 3. So 4 runs, 2 runs, 3 runs. You heard Jay say it. Sort of a West Coast style. Then they exploded for 15 against Bradley, but it's not going to be easy against the LSU pitching staff, which, my goodness, the way that they have exploded here out the gate with the strikeout numbers is outstanding. We know a program record 49 strikeouts for LSU pitching in a weekend, this past weekend against Milwaukee, and they bounced back with 15 more strikeouts against Nicholls on 15 strikeouts on Monday as well, and then another dominant performance against Nicholls on Wednesday. So you're talking about an LSU staff that has been outstanding, but it's not like that's anything new for LSU because they've actually led the nation in strikeouts each of the last 2 years. So there's something I asked Jay Johnson in this interview was, is this something you're trying to do? Like, obviously, you have great talent, and with great talent, there's going to come strikeouts. But when you've led the country consecutive years, and now you're setting program records in the opening weekend with different arms, clearly it's something you're doing. So I asked him about those lofty strikeout numbers.
When I arrived here, there was a very clear objective to get to the program level that we want to be at, and that was to recruit elite pitching. And it was the one area of the program we really felt like we had to upgrade, in all phases, starters, bullpen, left-handed, right-handed, out pitches, and then you pair that with getting some guys some high-level experience. You pair that with really good pitching development with Coach Yeski and Jamie Tutko, and then trying to use guys in the right situations. And we feel like that's allowed us to strike a lot of guys out, which that does carry a lot of value. I do think some of it is the way baseball is played nowadays. It's hitters find it more acceptable to strike out, I think, and kind of go for it for 3 swings, and maybe we're exposing that a little bit.
I think that's actually a very smart take there at the end. You do see strikeout numbers up across the board. What's also fascinating about a guy like Zack York, who I did ask Jay about, we'll get to that in a second, but I just want to bookmark that, because if you're an everydayer, you've heard me say this, that one of the outstanding things about Zack York is everyone's going to salivate over the home run power, and obviously his physique is something that's going to garner a lot of attention. He's a big 300-pound guy playing baseball, which is atypical, but it is his plate discipline, which has been outstanding, which you don't see a ton, as you heard Jay Johnson allude to there. As far as the LSU pitching so far through 5 games, as we mentioned, LSU has struck out 73 hitters. LSU pitching has struck out 73 hitters through 5 games. So you're talking about just over a dozen strikeouts per game on average, which is absolutely incredible. So this weekend, what we do know for LSU, Jay Johnson has announced that Casan Evans will pitch on Friday, and then Cooper Moore will pitch game 2 against Notre Dame. We mentioned Tony Newbeck will go for Indiana. It'll be a freshman lefty, Caden Crowell, for Notre Dame, who did throw in the opening weekend 3 innings. He walked 4, struck out 3. So that'll be against Cooper Moore on Saturday. Sunday is a TBD. Which is a little interesting, because I think we'd all assume that would be William Schmidt, but you've got options. I mean, Cooper Williams could certainly be an option there. I mean, Zach Cowan is someone they like as a potential starter, although he started on Wednesday against Nicholls. Gavin Guidry is the guy who we know could start if need be. Maverick Rizzi. These are all options for starters. And so ask Jay Johnson about why Sunday is still a TBD.
And that's only because we don't have a starter from Central Florida yet. And so just my innate competitive coaching advantage. We don't want to reveal any information, that we're not getting in return. So we're loaded pin. I think the best thing about yesterday was being able to win and not have to put several pitchers in the game, to get Cooper Williams a full week of rest, to get Rizzi a full week of rest, or 3 days, Guidry 3 days rest now, Fontenot. We feel like we're back to square from opening day, which I'm really glad yesterday's game worked out that way.
Of course, you run ruled Nicholls. As you mentioned, you didn't have to go deep. And so basically it will be an all hands on deck weekend, as Jay was alluding to there. Basically, everybody in that staff is available to pitch at some point this weekend. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we get to see the starters extend a little deeper into the weekend, which aside from Cooper Moore, we didn't see from Evans or Schmidt. So hopefully we get an opportunity to see that from those 2 guys this weekend. As far as Indiana, as we mentioned, they're 1-3 on the season. They were swept by North Carolina before beating Bradley 15-3 in Bloomington. Hoosiers a season ago had a winning record in Big Ten play. They were 16-14. They were 32-24 overall. But as you mentioned, the opening weekend, the Bats really struggled to get going for the Hoosiers. Notre Dame, they're 2-1 on the season. They open by taking 2 out of 3 at Florida Atlantic. Of course, Notre Dame in South Bend, it's snowed over and iced over in South Bend, so they're going to be playing road games in the South here to start the season. They played at Florida Atlantic, and now they'll play this weekend in Jacksonville. So Notre Dame 2-1 on the season. They were sub 500 last year, I should say, in ACC play at 14-16, 32-21 overall. And then Central Florida, who will be the opponent on Sunday, they're 3-1 on the season. They swept Siena in 3 games, and then they lost an extra inning game to Miami 8-7 on Tuesday. So a year ago, they were 9-21 in Big 12 play. So remember, of course, UCF moving into the Big 12. certainly an increased level in competition there for the Knights. But 3 very winnable games for LSU this weekend, but they'll have to play well enough to win them all. You'll get Kendall Rogers, his take on this weekend series here in just a smidge. When we come back, let me step aside. We'll come back at Kendall Rogers' take. Also, what Jay Johnson had to say about Zack York's plate discipline and what Jay Johnson learned about his team in those 5 games in 6 days. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. It was a heavyweight showdown between number 3 South Carolina and number 7 LSU, and the Gamecocks rose to the occasion. South Carolina secured a hard-fought 79-72 victory to stay atop the SEC standings, using a balanced offensive attack to outlast the Tigers. Tessa Johnson led the way with 21 points, while Raven Johnson added 19. Medina Okot dominated the paint with a double-double, finishing with 12 points and 17 rebounds, while Joyce Edwards chipped in 10 points to round out the scoring. With the statement win, the Gamecocks now turn their attention to a road matchup at number 23 Alabama on Thursday. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
We're also brought to you by FanDuel. You ever want to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you're automatically entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock in. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the NBA Finals. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And finally, we're brought to you by our friends at TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever just to hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can connect online. You can upload your documents, go about your day, get updates right in the TurboTax app. It is a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. So I did ask Jay Johnson what he learned about his team over those 5 games in 5 days, 5 games in 6 days, because so often you go into a season having gone through fall and then preseason work, and you may have certain preconceived ideas about your team, and then you play 5 games in 6 days, and it can confirm or disconfirm as you continue to learn throughout this process. So I asked Jay if there was anything maybe that surprised him.
Good question. I think I've believed the strength of our team would maybe be in numbers and depth and guys that can help, and that's probably what stood out. We've used a lot of different pitchers in different situations and feel really good about how the bullpen has performed, so not a surprise there. Hitting wise, a lot of good matchups that we feel like we can get for guys, and they've come through in those deals. So yeah, I don't think so. I'm pleased that we were behind on opening day and responded well. I'm pleased we were in a close game in game 2 and responded well, and I'm pleased we've played pretty well the last 3 games.
They found a way over the weekend. We talked about this if you were here for our series recap. They won 3 games in 3 very different ways. Of course, they were behind, rallied to run rule Milwaukee in game 1. They played a very close game in game 2 where Milwaukee had the game-tying run at the plate, by the way, and LSU slammed the door. And then, of course, in game 3, they won 21-7 and was a whitewashing. So They have found ways to win different ways to win so far in these games. Now, I mentioned we were going to come back to Zack York, and I did ask Jay Johnson because of the comment he made about strikeout numbers. What is it about Zack York that gives him this reputation, this ability to be such a patient hitter in an era where guys, especially power hitters, are constantly looking to elevate the baseball and swing for the fences?
Comes from an elite baseball family. I'd recruited his brother Nick to Arizona. He ended up going in the first round with the Pirates with the Red Sox. He's now in the big leagues with the Pirates, playing with Paul Skeens. His mom was like an All-American softball player at Fresno State. His other brother, I think he's the hits leader at Cal Poly, which is a great program as well. So total baseball family. So it's kind of ingrained in him beforehand. And, you knew that's what you were getting was professional at bats. Kind of call him our version of Scott Hatteberg from Moneyball.
Okay, look at this. How about Mama York? That's good to know. She's like Henry Rowan Gardner's mom, the floater pitch. You know what I mean? Good stuff.
Yeah, she's a stud. I mean, I'll tell you what, too, his brother, who's in the big leagues now, was not this well-known prospect, but every time you showed up, you kept going like, this guy's the best player on the field. This guy's the best player on the field. And then, unfortunately, the Red Sox figured that out and drafted him in the first round. So 5 years later, I was happy to take Zach for 1 year at LSU.
Zack York off to a great start for the LSU baseball Tigers, as you heard Jay Johnson allude to there. Jake Brown's leading the team with a .500 batting average. And if you don't have to go too far down, well, Jack Ruckert's batting 1,000, but he's only got 2 at bats. But Brown's at 500. John Pearson, with 4 at bats, 2 for 4, also at 500. Braden Simpson, 2 for 4. But you look at the everyday players. Brown's at 500. Dardar's at 417. Caraway hitting 375. Arrambide at 350. Zack York at 333. But go look at the on-base percentage. That's the thing that, if you really want to highlight of your everyday guys, Dardar's at 632. York 591. As good as Jake Brown has been, seemingly like nobody can keep him off base. His on-base percentage is 542, which is outstanding. But Zack York's on-base percentage is quite literally 50 points higher than Jake Brown's. That speaks volumes about his ability to get on base, even if guys and teams are pitching around him. So something we'll see this weekend. I did promise also that you'd hear from Kendall Rogers, the premier college baseball national writer from D1 Baseball. I asked Kendall for his thoughts on the Indiana Hoosiers, who LSU will play on Friday in Jacksonville.
Yeah, what's interesting about IU is over the weekend against North Carolina, who, by the way, I think is a really good team. I think they're a national championship contender if they're going to hit the way they hit in the later innings in that weekend. I think the Indiana scores are a little deceiving. If you go back and look at the UNC series, I mean, there were a couple of games there where, it was, 1-1 or 2-1 there in the middle to 6th, 7th inning, and things just kind of fell apart. So it does seem like the bullpen is a little bit of an issue. It does seem like their starting pitching has some potential. But I do think this is a weekend for LSU that's kind of neat in the sense that I think as long as they play pretty decent baseball, they're going to go 3-0. But I think these teams are good enough to challenge them a little bit. Indiana's got talent. If you look at Notre Dame, there's a club that last year was right on the cusp of the NCAA tournament. Sean Slitzler, their coach, thinks they're going to be better this year. So quality club in UCF. I mean, we know UCF's going to have talent. They've got Roman Kimball, the South Carolina kickback, Zach Skinner, a really talented transfer from Lamar. So, I mean, they've got talent. So I think Jay's going to find out a little bit in the sense that they're going to go against good but not great teams.
A series that LSU should very well sweep, but I always love going on the road for these opportunities. And I say it every year in some form or fashion whenever LSU leaves. Listen, from fall ball and preseason work, you see the same thing every day. You dress in the same clubhouse, you stand in the same batter's box, looking at the same batter's eye, you feel ground balls on the same dirt, same dimensions of the field and the outfield. If you're a pitcher, you're looking at the same press box and backstop. Like, everything is the same. You're working in the same bullpen. Everything is the same. And eventually, you're going to have to go on the road in the SEC, and you have to go play in Omaha to win a national championship. So you're going to experience something different. Sitting in a different dugout, playing in a field with different dimensions, a mound with a different backstop, fans cheering against you. Like, Go get on a bus and go experience something different in February to start acclimating yourself to that. I understand fans may not love the deal that the games are going to be seen behind a paywall this weekend, and I understand that. But I would also say in June, if LSU is in Omaha winning a national championship, we're not going to look back and say this is great. But remember back in February when you had to pay $30 to watch LSU play in Jacksonville. I think for the betterment of the team, Jay Johnson's doing the exact right thing. Bring your team away from the box, challenge them. These showcase things are great. You get to play 3 different teams in 3 different days, and it's a great opportunity for LSU. One thing Kendall mentioned, though, those close games against North Carolina with Indiana, and it was the bullpen ultimately that kind of gave way. Something worth watching. LSU, a gigantic advantage over most anyone they play when it comes to the bullpen. So if you do end up getting in a close game, deeper into the game, probably advantage shifts towards LSU. Just something to watch Friday when the Tigers and the Hoosiers tangle there in Jacksonville. Of course, we'll be here for you, giving you post-game reaction as long as the Tigers are playing all season long right here on Locked on LSU. So do me a favor, if you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU. It's your team every day.